For a long time, I've had a belief that we aren't defined only by the big earth-shattering moments of our lives. In fact, the small, mundane, everyday events of our lives mold us and shape us into who we are. Hello everyone, I'm Mannsi Agrawal and you're watching If I Had Not Failed on News 24. Today, I'm honored just to be sitting across the table from this lady. She is truly an icon, a treasure for the entire country. Her life and its ups and downs has resulted in the Dwarika's group, of which she is currently the president. Namaste ma'am, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here and thank you so much for having us here at this wonderful space. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So ma'am, without further ado, I'd like to start with the first question that I always ask everybody, and the question is, what do you consider your greatest failure and why?
Yes, you've asked me why failures. Of course, the failures are something that we all face. So my first failure was when I got married. I was brought up outside. I went to school in a British school, in a convent, in Loreto Convent, and you can see that sort of situation, and got married to a very conservative Newari family. And that was where I had a failure of getting to be in contact with everybody. Number one, I didn't know the language. Newari was not my forte. So number two, I was different, brought up very differently than the Nepali. That was my first thing of failure, that I felt that I couldn't get into the whole place and become one of them.
Did you feel that this lack of sort of being able to accept was more from your side than from the family?
My side, I was very amenable. I was taught by my parents that my thing was that, I'll have to tell you, because we come from a very well-known family. My mother's one thing when she told me when I was about to leave, she says, you know, the first thing you remember is never see that our name is darkened. Never see. तिमीले हाम्रो नाम नबिकाउनु, हाम्रो नाम जहिले पनि राख्नु. So that was always behind me. So I was I adapted to everything possible. I did everything which I had never done in my life, but it was difficult.
It was, even at that time, to be able to...
No, at that time it was very conservative. Nepal and the society was totally different. So that was when I had to adjust, and that I felt that I couldn't really go into the family. They didn't accept me as one of them. Right. It was difficult.
And did that make you lose confidence and self-esteem in yourself?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
You still sort of maintained your voice in your space and you maintained that self-esteem by yourself?
Right, because I always was a reader. So I needed books and I needed something to read and to do. I couldn't sit quietly. So when the housework was done, I couldn't sit and gossip. That was one of my failures, that I couldn't get with my sister-in-laws and with everybody, sit and gossip. So what I would do is I would go and read, or I would do something else, knit or do something.
And do you think your education, the fact that even at that point you had this fabulous education to back you up, do you think your education had a very big role to play in your sort of having this self-confidence, even though the people around you were very different?
My confidence came, yes, from the schooling, as well as my own family. My parents and my grandmother gave me the confidence.
That's amazing. It's amazing to hear that from somebody who came into a different family, settled in here, managed to make her mark not just in the city, in the country, but in the world in a lot of ways. What about your professional life, your career? When you started managing this fabulous place and when you started sort of getting passionately involved in art, what were the struggles you encountered along the way? Well,
number one, the struggle was that because my husband was also a different sort of a person. He wanted development of the family. He wanted the development of the women, really. He wanted the women to be given space, given health-wise as well as fooding, health. He wanted yoga for the women, education for the women, and so that didn't go with the elders. It didn't work at all, because at that time it was totally different. The whole society, especially the Newari society, was very, very different. So that didn't go. And he became a government official, and I think he found it very hard. So we were the first joint family people and the eldest son to move away from the house.
And of course, this wasn't taken very well with the society at that point.
No, that was, again, it is not the boy or not the man who was bad, it was the woman who was bad.
Of course.
This woman came from outside, and he's taken the word is, hira lai kira le khayo.
Oh my God, that's what was being said. Oh my God, okay. So how did then all of these struggles and all of this come to being, and how did you manage to make this into, Dwarika's, into this wonderful group that it is, into all the fabulous properties, the art, and the kind of work that you've done for tourism in this country is unparalleled. How did your struggles culminate into this really?
It was, I have to tell you, it was my husband who was a real big support. He helped me in every way. He gave me space. He would encourage me in everything. When we came out, we had to struggle because we came out with nothing. So we had to struggle and we had to work. So I started working. I started teaching in a school, Kanti Suri school. I used to teach English. So that's how I started. And by that time, then slowly, I was taken in by the American library. That was library before. And I had a very, very interesting job. And the job was that I had to bring in professors, teachers, everyone, bring in art, bring in films, and do exhibitions, etc. So that is when I started with the art. I got involved with the Nepali artists as well as foreign artists, because we had big displays in the library itself. So this is how I started working with art and things of that sort. I worked for some years. Then there's again another thing that happened. When you are with the work and your husband is somewhere else, he became a Bada Hakim, so he was posted outside. He became sick, so I resigned and I left and I stayed with him. I was with him in Raj Biraj. So I stayed there with him. So I left my job and I was with him as a housewife, taking care of everything. Of course, I had children. I have a daughter at that time, and the daughter was with me. The son was here studying. So this is how it went on. It was a struggle, but then when he came back, we came back. We couldn't sit quietly. So what was the best thing that could be done? We tried to do other things. We tried a furniture factory, but that didn't suit us, that didn't work. So then tourism. We said, Nepal, tourism is a thing that can be happening for Nepal. It's the savior of Nepal because we have nature that God has given us. We have all the art and architecture, and we have the people. So this is our raw material. We don't have to depend on outsiders. So that's how we started a travel agency. There it was really a struggle and lots of failures, because at that time all the business was done by Indians, Indian travel agents, and they had to give it to us. We were secondary. So we tried, but we never got anything from them. It was very hard. So then my husband worked. He went to Japan and he broke the market. He made the Japanese come straight here. So that was how, and we struggled and struggled and struggled. So many failures in doing business and not getting it. Working hard, nights and days, and then, it didn't work. So those are things that really made, but that failure didn't leave us and say, I'm dejected and say, no, we can't do anything. No, it made us go further, try more, fight with them, talk with them, encourage them, get them to come. So that's how we worked.
Listening to this story straight from you here makes me feel like I'm sort of going into the history of this country and the way tourism developed. And it's amazing to see that in spite of like a line of failures, you didn't give up. What was going on in your head? Was there no other option, or were you also passionate about doing this?
We became very passionate because we wanted to do something for this country. We wanted our people. As I said, I was in the villages. I was in Rajbiraj. I was in Nepalganj. I used to be in the villages, watching the village people, going to their homes, going to see how they were. So that gave me that, that we have to do something for this place, for this country. So that's how we worked hard. It was not easy. It was not like now you've got all the apparatus, you've got internet, you've got your mobile, and you do everything with it. In those days, when you had to communicate, I had to go to the post office to telephone.
Wow.
We couldn't get telephone from the house or anything like that. You had to go there if you had to make an international call. So those were the days. Letters would take a month or 2 months to arrive or to reach them.
And through all of that, you managed to sort of survive and to persist. My question is, what was the conversation in your head when you were going through all these struggles? Let's not call them failures maybe, but struggles, and through all these steps that you were going through. What were the conversations that you were having with yourself?
I would say these are things, failures, these are things, there are problems that you have to face. When you come to a problem, you don't leave it as a problem, but let's see how we can solve it. That is what used to go on with me, because I tried and did everything in those days. We didn't have apparatus. I'll have to tell you funny things. I used to love cooking and baking and things like that. There was no ovens.
Okay. Wow.
You laugh at what we did. I got a tin, one of these oil tins.
Right.
And had the person make me a little sort of a door and a shelf. And on the top, there was a hole underneath. So I'd put it on top of the stove, and that was my oven.
Do you think, I understand your struggles and your failures have made you stronger, but if your struggles and failures wouldn't have happened, what would have been different about your life right now? Would you be who you are?
I don't know, because I'm always liking to do things. I don't like to sit quietly, anyway. But even while I was doing that, I started with the voluntary work. Even when we were really working on how to survive, I was doing voluntary work. I started working in Bir Hospital as a volunteer. In those days when the Bir Hospital, it was in shambles. When you were there, the top would fall, the ceiling, because it was just a thing, the plaster would fall. Things like that. So I've seen a lot of changes, gone through a lot of changes in this country.
And do you think that your experience through all of these different segments and societies and different communities, do you think all of that has given you this perspective that other things probably couldn't have? Maybe not just an education, maybe the fact that you've done so many different things, from being an entrepreneur, a teacher, a volunteer at a hospital, to somebody who was going into these villages in Rajbiraj. Do you think these different kind of ways of looking at life have given you a very distinct perspective?
It has. It gave me the strength. It gave me the thing that I have to do something. I see others. I see women struggling. I see them without anything, with babies around, not enough food, not enough clothing, etc. So that gave me that we have to do something. If I'm able to, I have to do something.
I also love your idea when you talk about ladies with not enough. I also love that you had an international exposure where you were traveling abroad and you were seeing how women there in those countries lived, as juxtaposed with the women of our country who didn't have all that much. Did that also give you like an impetus and an incentive to sort of do something for the voiceless women?
That is exactly right, yes. I see other women in other countries working. Yeah, I managed to also meet with the first woman judge in the US. She was the first woman judge, and I met her. And all that gave me that thing, yes, if they can do, why can't our people do? Why can't our women work? Why are they only working as house and doing this and that, bringing up children, and that even without any facility, with all the problems they face? So this is what gave me the impetus to work. And we worked with a few women. A lady from America came and she encouraged me. She wanted me to start this organization called Business and Professional Women. It's an international organization which is world over in 100 something countries. And she came and she says, Ambika, why don't you do this? Why don't you take this up for the women? In the beginning, I was very reluctant because I had to lead. I was doing my business, I was working, and I had to put my energy into this also. I was very reluctant, but I got together a few friends, very good friends, and we sat together and we formed this group. In 1970, actually 72, 73, we started this. But just a group of women, we started working and finding out how they were working with the work. So this is how we started, and it's still going on. And I've been working on it since then.
So I love that you talk about experiences that happened 50 years ago, almost as if they were yesterday. I can still see that passion, I can see that twinkle when you mention certain things. And I can see that passion literally oozing through because you talk with so much of purpose, if that's the right word. What do you think has been your guiding light in life?
As I said, I saw these, I got the opportunity to study. My parents made me study in one of the best institutes of that time, where only certain people could go. And I'll have to tell you, when I went to school in that school in Darjeeling, Loreto, there were just 2 of us non-Europeans. One was the Maharaja of Burdwan's daughter and myself. We were the dark people. All of them were fair-skinned, fair-haired and sorts of things, and we were outcasts. We had to face so much trouble there, so much face, but we struggled and we came up. And I'll have to tell you, my grandmother, I have to tell you this story. My grandmother, a woman, she was what you call a very stringent Hindu. She wouldn't eat things that other people had touched. She would do things herself, or only that those group who would cook for us. This woman had never been to school. So when I refused to go back to school, when I was, I think, 6, 7, when I had to face all that in that school, the trouble I had to face in that school, I didn't want to go back. So I had tantrums, but my mother couldn't convince me, my father couldn't convince me, anyone else. I said, no, I'm not going back. But my grandmother, she convinced me, and she did it in such a beautiful way. Somebody who had never been educated, who had studied herself to make herself read. She told me, listen, I was going to the school where I hated going to the church, kneeling for hours, learning all the prayers, having a nun with me, making me study all that because we were 2 pagans, we had to be saved. In those days they were doing this. Later this all went. But in those days, that was the thing. So we were really hounded, both of us. We had no time to play. When the playtime came, we would be with the nun, going to church or going somewhere, sitting and learning all the prayers and going through the Bible and all this at that time. And I hated it and I didn't want to go. But my grandmother, I think this is something that is great what she told me in that young age. She said, listen, if you wear red glasses, what do you see around? Red. If you wear green glasses, what do you see? Green. Then she said, yes, go to church, pray, do what they ask you. God is the same. It's only people see them in different lights. And she said, listen, we are sending you there to get educated, to learn, get knowledge. I never got the opportunity. You have the opportunity. Don't lose this opportunity.
And that made all the difference.
That made a difference. I went back.
I think that made all the difference in your life.
That made a difference in my life, that I saw this, there's no difference. When we talk about religion, when we talk this and that, everyone is the same.
Absolutely. And this one lesson at that tender age must have changed your life in so many ways.
Right.
And I also think that somehow, and I'm not too sure whether you've pondered very strongly over this, but I look at this 6-year-old girl, discriminated in a lot of ways, felt like an outsider, gets married into a family, again doesn't feel so much like an insider, and then starts working again in a very male-dominated kind of a sector, never accepted very easily. So your life has been always about finding your voice, finding your space, and being able to live in that spot, in that sacred space with comfort. What has this taken? A lot of strength, a lot of confidence, or a lot of willingness to prove yourself?
More than prove myself, I had this thing that, no, I can't can't get lost. When I was walking on the streets, they would stare at me, but I never saw anything. I would go to my destination. I never looked right, never looked left. I went straight. That was my way. I never saw anything else. My aim was I had to go to work, I had to go to this place, and that's where I went.
So the focus was laser sharp.
Yes. I didn't like to ponder around, look everywhere and look at this one, because then I would notice people staring at me, because they used to stare at me. A lot of people stared at me because I was different. I was totally different.
Were you also conscious of your differences? Because you went to this school at a very young age, you had been, made to realize the differences in skin color, the differences that break people around. Were you conscious about this?
No, I didn't get any conscious of that. I didn't feel it. I felt rather, what is the difference? If there's different colors, it doesn't matter. I learned that from that age, that yes, there's so many different colors, different things, and it's the same. So I learnt that then, and that's always ingrained in me, that there is no difference with anyone.
I completely love this thought, because in those days, and we're talking about many, many years ago, these must have been very radical thoughts. These are not thoughts that everyone had,
no.
Not things that everyone would be able to digest either. So I think this is wonderful. Let's now fast forward a few years to maybe a few years ago. Now for the last few years, you've been handling this entire property, this entire business crew by yourself. What are some of the struggles that you face now, or more recent struggles?
Well, number one, if you go to different countries, again, you have this thing about the male and the female. You're always a female and you're always sort of, okay, second class. So that I had to face, but I always fought against it. I never let them dominate me. That was one thing I hated, and I never let anyone dominate. I would say my words with my thing, but I never fought. That was one thing I never did. I never shouted, I never fought with anyone. When I got into trouble in my house, in my in-laws' house, I never protested, I never said anything. They all tell me that. And I tried and worked, tried to adjust, tried to do everything. Also outside, I got into where men were only. I happened to be the only woman there. But still, I kept my place, and I was friendly with them, but I kept my place. So that was one thing that I always learned, and I always did. I was never intimidated by them. I didn't think, oh, they are this and that. No, if they can do, I can do also. I can face it also. That was my spirit, and that is how I've been doing it all through.
It's wonderful. When you say this, it sounds almost like a film now. I can see it in sepia, I can see it in black and white, and just the whole story of how from a cowshed to see this group and this beautiful, in a way, a legacy, a living museum, something that the country is proud of, not just you, not just me, everybody, because of what it holds. Do you think that every brick here has a story?
Some of them do, because they come from the Rana palaces, which were broken down. We would get them. If you look at some places, you would see the name embossed on them. So that is there. We have some old ones, new ones. We would pick up everything and get it and restore it. Most of the things, the stones are also from there. The stones on the outside are all from there. The marble is like that. When they break down the buildings, we buy them and we get them here and we put them there. So things like that. So my husband has been really one who's done, and I was together with him all the time, working. Then he passed away, and of course I was alone. But then my daughter, married to a German, she came, and she because she had promised him. She said, I will help you, because when he was passing away, he said, who's going to take care? All alone, who's going to be there? So she said, I'll be there. So that's how she came. And she's now running. I don't run anything. Now the third generation, not only the second generation, but the third generation is running. My grandson is running this now, her son. So this is, we have, and there's another thing I have to say. You don't hold on to. You have to give it to the young people. They have to do things. They have to learn. You sit behind and let them work.
And you enjoy that experience where you're letting the young people take over?
Yes. It's so good to watch them and do it. And if they've done something wrong, slowly, I don't scold them, but I tell them in a way that, okay, this is, I think we should do it like this.
But you do? You do?
I think in a way, yes.
In a way, yes. Now, looking back at all of these years, if I gave you magically the choice to change one thing, one decision in your life, what would it be?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm happy with what I've been doing, because I still work with women. I still work with my love for heritage. I work with the Nepal Heritage Society. I work with this business and professional women, and we work with women all over. This is what we are trying to train the women, make them self-reliant. I'm very happy I see so many of the women who have excelled from nothing to come into that. I'm so happy about, the 4 Kamalari girls in Kailali. 2 are running a hosiery factory, and they are extending. And 2 of them are running computer training and repairing. Can you imagine Kamalaris doing this? So they are there, they're doing. There's so many others who've had so much problems, who've turned into entrepreneurs.
It's amazing the number of lives that have been impacted as a result of all your years of passion and hard work. It's wonderful. My final question to you, ma'am, is this. What would be the one thing that you want every woman in Nepal and maybe internationally to know?
I would like to say that a woman is not, what do you say, everybody says gentle, who's, soft, who can. A woman is the strongest human being. If a woman can bear a child and bear that pain at childbirth, she can go through anything. She can face anything and work. So I say the women are strong, and we just have to believe in ourselves to go ahead and do what you think you would like to do. Not what somebody else tells you, yeah, do this, but what you have inside, do it. You want to be a good housewife. A housewife is a great thing, because when somebody tells me, oh, I'm just a housewife, I say, that's not right. You're not only a housewife. You're a home minister, you're an education minister, you're a health minister, you're also a finance minister.
A beautiful finance minister, I'm sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you're all this. So why do you call yourself just a housewife? You're doing this. Don't belittle yourself, but do something else also, produce something so that you can earn with money also, because this is what we are working on, trying to get that these people not be paid, but counted, so that our GDP doesn't go low. These are working. These women are working. They work more than any man does, but the thing is not counted. So we need that to be counted, just to be counted. We don't want money. I'm not saying that you give them money. Give them that recognition. That's all. And that I think we need for all women, that we are strong. We have the ability to go think. There's another thing I'll have to tell you about women. We are multitasked. We can do multitask at one time, which a man cannot. I'm sorry I have to say that to the men, but I know that women are that. So women, we should be strong. We have to think, yes, we can do. And if we work together, as women together, I think we can change everything.
I love that, and on that wonderful, super inspiring note for me as well, because when you said don't belittle yourself, it's a fight for recognition, it's a fight for your space. I think I would never think that these words ring any truer than when they come from you, because your life truly has been a testimony of that. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this conversation, for being so graceful and for being a wonderful host. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming and talking to me. It's a pleasure talking to you, you all, and especially to young people like you. I love talking to young people because you are the one. Everybody says you're the future. I don't say that. I say you're the present.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You've been truly, truly inspiring and somebody that the country looks up to. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you all for having me here and letting me share a few things. I hope it helps people. That's all.
The pleasure.
I hope I can do something, a little thing. Not much, but a little drop also. I hope so.
Speaking to ma'am today was truly a great experience for me. I could literally see history unfolding in front of my eyes. Her work, of course, is unparalleled. What she has contributed towards the development of this country is something that few can dream of. However, today I came in thinking we're going to talk about entrepreneurship. But speaking to her was like having a window into another world, a world where I learned about the progression of society, entrepreneurship, and also about women's life. Ma'am, thank you so much for your words, for your work, and most importantly for your wisdom and for being who you are. Thank you.